As of the time that I'm filming this video, drag has just been banned in the state of Tennessee, as well as gender-affirming care for people under 18. We are not down with that shit here in the Coke Francis extended universe. So, if you would like to help out, here are some great organizations that you should consider supporting or donating to. Just Us, a group of programs at the Oasis Center in Tennessee, which provides a safe space for queer and trans youths and is actively working towards partnering with other LGBTQ agencies, service providers, and entities to help further their cause. You can support them by visiting justusoasis.org. Trans Lifeline, which provides peer support and a crisis hotline for trans folks in both English and Spanish. Visit translifeline.org to donate. The Transgender Education Network of Texas, aka TENT, focuses on furthering gender equality in Texas through a racial lens with an intersectional approach. You can donate by visiting transtexas.org. Mermaids is one of the UK's leading LGBTQ charities, which provides secure online communities, local groups, helpline services, web resources, and educates wider society on gender identity. You can support them by visiting mermaidsuk.org.uk. I will, of course, put all of these links in the description box below. And now back to I don't know. I've done it. I've finally found another excuse to wear this costume. As you know, my usual MO on this channel is talking about stuff I love and stuff I hate, but at the end of the day, I talk about whatever the fuck I want. It's a beautiful Sunday in Los Angeles, and I feel like talking shit. So I'd like to pivot to talking about something that seems to infest every corner of the internet, and one that gives me a daily headache. And I figured wearing this extremely warm costume would perfectly complement a topic that seems to get everyone so heated. I'm talking, of course, about what I like to call the woke boogeyman.
And we reject woke ideology.
Bringing attention to yet another example of our woke telecom companies.
Who's ready to get rid of this woke curriculum at ASU, U of A, and NAU?
Put up with the endless woke garbage that the left churns out by the gallon.
The era of the wokeaholics is coming to a crashing close.
Most Republicans are now awakened to this fact that wokeness is weakness. It's a cancer that's eating America.
Up yours, woke moralists.
Greetings, my good bitches. The name's Holander. I'm an editor, comedy writer, drag artist, and I'm here because I figured you all needed to hear this from a real hero. So, full disclosure, going into 2023, I actually blocked a handful of the especially insufferable talking heads and Nazi simps on Twitter. From Elongated Muskrat, Uncle Ruckus and Drag, the junior high president of Junior Achievement, to this self-proclaimed fascist who not so secretly watches lowly. However, their names keep rearing their ugly heads on my trending page every so often, or are being intentionally promoted by the guy who got read to filth by an ex-president. As they say, even a broken clock is right twice a day. Man, ever since he stopped being the president, Trump's come up with some real bangers. I live in the United States. I mean, duh. And I'm extremely fortunate and grateful that I make a decent living, have a roof over my head, food in my fridge, gas in my car, and makeup on my face. That's not to say that I don't, still live in fear of getting shot at the gym or the grocery store, getting harassed due to my sexuality or gender expression, or that I might not be able to afford my meds or unnecessary surgery someday. And that's coming from someone who, in the grand scheme of the world, is extremely privileged. 1 in 5 children in the US is experiencing food insecurity. Over 500,000 people are homeless. Over 37 million people are living in poverty. And our chances of being murdered by firearms is 22 times greater than the whole European Union. And women, people of color, non-Christians, and the LGBTQ population live in constant fear of getting murdered simply because they exist. So, given all these problems, we should be addressing them, right? They affect everyone here and should be prioritized to ensure a safer, happier nation. But there's one issue that seems to have trumped the conservative population. It boils down to one single word, one that they love to weaponize anytime they're arguing about something they disagree with. Despite not even being able to define it themselves, it's an easy way out of a debate for them, and like-minded people just love to eat it the fuck up. But before we talk about that, if you are a fan of watching a very tired drag queen talk about nerd shit forever, I ask that you run for the presidency. Pour all your money in campaigns, rile up a base that you know you can rely on, and crush in every debate. And when you finally win, instead of making your inauguration speech, kindly unzip your pants and dick slap those like and subscribe buttons as hard as you can. So what does the word woke really mean, and where did it come from? Woke is derived from African American Vernacular English, abbreviated to AAVE. The term was first used all the way back in the 1930s in Lead Belly song Scottsboro Boys, essentially meaning to stay ever vigilant. By the mid-20th century, the word became part of the verbal lexicon to mean well aware and informed, but specifically by the black community to mean alert to racial prejudice and discrimination. And as with everything black people have done, white people almost immediately started to appropriate it, all the way back in the 1960s beatnik movement.
What the fuck do white people have to be blue about? Banana Republic ran out of khakis?
By the 2010s, the term gained immense popularity, with more and more frequent calls to bring awareness to social inequalities within the black community, like ending police brutality with the Black Lives Matter movement, the idea of white privilege, and reparations. And, of course, the word woke was once again appropriated by white people on both sides. On one end, as a white liberal shorthand term to express their knowledge on what's best for everyone, and on the other end, weaponized by conservatives over anything that offended them. When I first started hearing the word woke used so often around the mid-2010s, I actually didn't like the term. To me, at least in the way I saw it being used in discourse, the idea that if one is woke, it implies that one is done learning, which is dangerous. Once I learned the origin of the word, that's when I realized, oh, another good thing ruined by white people. Got it. How quickly we forget that just a few years ago, the word PC was thrown around in this word's place. That was cringe enough, but it at least made more sense in the context of criticizing white liberalism. Political correctness was the actual correct term, but that just wasn't enough for them, so the right had to turn to appropriating words that meant something once upon a time. Isn't it just fantastic that the same people who told us to wake up for years are now furiously anti-woke? And now, in 2023, the word woke has almost entirely lost its meaning and is not only ridiculed, but feared. The terms woke washing and woke capitalism reference corporations that virtue signal progressive ideas, despite often oppressing the marginalized groups they claim to support. This is absolutely worthy of mockery and criticism, and for a brief moment was the one thing that united the left and the right. Obviously, that didn't last long because this is America, and it was soon revealed that both sides mocked woke capitalism for different reasons. One side was calling out the hypocrisy of doing absolutely nothing to help those whose symbols are being performatively slapped on every product imaginable. It's why Disney needs to stick to what it's good at, celebrating its centennial anniversary with dripping cum ears. Capitalism is inherently soulless. Profits are always prioritized over people. Don't ever be fooled by all the rainbow face wipes and toilet cleaners you see lining the shelves of Target once a year. And it's not exclusive to corporations. Anyone who goes out of their way to prove how socially aware they are without actually doing anything is insufferable and self-serving. The other side, however, mocked these efforts simply because they disagree with the idea of helping or representing marginalized people in general, especially when it invades their precious capitalist safe space. It's now used entirely ironically or as an insult for anything related to social justice that they disagree with, i.e. all of it. It's not only criticized when it's done performatively, it's criticized when it happens at all, and lately when it doesn't even exist.
Americans do not deserve to be governed by narcissistically woke people who carry around Ziploc bags of kale to give them energy.
Well, M&M's putting its woke spokes candies on hold. The candy giant most notably changing the green M&M's white go-go boots to sneakers. Remember that last year?
This is the double down on wokeness in the military, but it extends the wokeness in the military to a mandate on the private sector that supports the mission.
Puffin Books is now rewriting, I'm not kidding you, rewriting Roald Dahl's children's books.
It's not that it's actually going to offset emissions, okay? The level of reduction is infinitesimal, but they're trying to recruit your kids into climate politics at an earlier age. Make them climate conscious now.
Yeah, I didn't think of that. You're right. They're going after the children.
Of course they are.
It's a de facto catch-all pejorative that they weaponize for anything they don't like, real or not. Like 7-year-olds, they've learned a new word that they're eager to use as much as possible, even when it doesn't apply to the situation. Or maybe most of them just can't spell anything longer than 4 letters. To be fair, a lot has changed in the realms of social justice and equality in a very short amount of time. I'm not even 30, and the amount that's changed just in my lifetime is honestly incredible to me. It's the one thing that I felt bad about when I roasted that awful gay reality show from 2011. I hate taking any progress we've made for granted, but fuck that show. Seriously, fuck that show. I hope all those people and their careers are dead. I can understand that plenty of people are overwhelmed by all this change. Some of them see change as a positive thing, but the rate at which it's moving is still really overwhelming to them. On the other end of the spectrum, you have the true bigots who can't stand the sight of a non-cishet white Christian male succeeding in today's world. And then there are those in the middle, more than likely well-meaning people who just don't know any better. So when they see someone on TV who panders to their fears and insecurities and speaks their language, they'll latch on to every word, especially the ones that are, dare I say it, triggering to them. And the loudest of the anti-woke crusaders are almost always trying to deflect from their own actions. Remember, every conservative accusation is actually a confession. Woke has fallen into the conservative lexicon the same way as groomer and cancel culture. Easy, bite-sized words that create a big bad boogeyman that preys on citizens to ensure that the right gets their vote. The reason they call gay people and drag queens groomers is because they're afraid they'll get cancelled if they called us faggots instead. And oh, what a horrible thing that would be.
We're faggots. The world hates us. Why ruin a good thing?
The strangest word demonization that's come out of this manufactured culture war, to me at least, is the term pronouns. A form of etiquette that entered the mainstream recently is asking for a person's pronouns when you address them. A new concept that took some adapting for all of us? Sure. I know Twitter and Tumblr will disagree with me, but for most people on Earth, 8 out of 10 times, someone's pronouns will match what they look like, and sometimes they don't. That's the whole point of asking. At the end of the day, no skin off anyone's asses. Well, it is for some, apparently. Yes, good bitches, with this new ushering in of respect for others, the right has managed to demonize pronouns to rile up their base into a frenzy. Under the larger umbrella of the woke boogeyman, plenty of other boogeymen have spawned out of it, including the pronouns boogeyman. Pronouns! Grammar! From the 4th grade! It's comical. But what exactly can they do about it though? How are they going to stop people from hurting their little ears so much? Not much, but holy shit, they're actively trying to. Going so far as calling for bans on pronouns. For a platform that's so against cancel culture, I don't think you can take cancel culture farther than criminalizing basic grammar. Let's say they got what they wanted, and pronouns are now officially illegal in the United States States of America. What can we not say? Well, there are 4 types of pronouns in the English language, and they never actually specified which ones they were going to ban, so let's go through all of them. There are personal pronouns, which is likely what the right is referring to, but they go beyond he, she, or they. Use the words I, it, you, your, mine, and buddy, you might be looking at a criminal mischief charge, which is actually the real name of a charge you can be hit with. I'm not kidding.
Criminal mischief?
Yeah. That's so fucking funny to me. Again, they never actually specified which pronouns they want to ban, so let's go through a few more of them. Relative pronouns like who, which, that, whose, and whom might just land you in a holding cell for a night. Ah, shit, they had a camera there. Now I'm gonna get fined for using demonstrative pronouns like this, these, and those. Maybe they'll be a bit more forgiving with indefinite pronouns, right? Surely words like anything, anyone, something, someone, none, nobody, each, and either will just warrant a slap on my limp wrist. And this is as far as it goes because of my arm wars. These are correctional. At this point, the only solution to fill in these blanks would be to bring back Mad Libs, which is coincidentally the group of people they're trying to offend. And this doesn't even address the fact how upset they'd be if they were misgendered. If you called Matt Walsh a she for however the fuck long she was on Dr. Phil for, Miss Thing would probably not be very happy about it. Because this is just how my train of thought flows, let's put a pin in this and talk about another hot button issue related to this. Come with me, good bitches, as we have a grand old time legally defining what the freedom of speech actually is. Cornell Law School's definition verbatim is the right to speak, write, and share ideas and opinions without facing punishment from the government. The First Amendment protects this right by prohibiting Congress from making laws that would curtail freedom of speech. Now, this excludes obscenity, indecency, and defamation. It also excludes incitement, such as the encouragement of the January 6th riots, or fighting words, such as, I think Anastasia is a terrible fucking movie. But keep in mind, this rule is referring to the public versus a government entity. Private companies, however, are at discretion to regulate speech within their platforms and workspaces. This is why Trump was banned from Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter without any legal repercussions. And that leads us to the biggest battlefield for what constitutes freedom of speech nowadays: Twitter and its newest abusive stepdad. Now, before we start dunking on Elon Musk, let's take a look at some of his accomplishments as a businessman. He is the first person in history to lose $200 billion. He was recently awarded a mention in the Guinness Book of World Records as the most money lost by an individual ever. He also dares to make high-risk, high-reward decisions that most business owners never would, like buying the least profitable social network for $44 billion and not asking Jack Dorsey to sign a non-competitive clause. Personally, these are all things that I look for in a leader. Stunning and brave. You might be wondering, but Francis, if Elon is such a maverick in the ways of business, why would he buy Twitter of all things? The answer is simple. His vow to the Twitterverse that he would be the champion of free speech once he took over. And boy was he right. Everyone was finally allowed to say what they wanted on Twitter. Comedy was legal again. Like our fair and balanced government, he only restricted speech when it was absolutely necessary. Like when a post criticized him, made fun of him, reminded him of his 50 or so kids, supported his ex-wives, made fun of Trump or anybody else he pathetically simps for, or just mentioned him in general. Oh, and when Kanye posted a shirtless pic of him where he looks like Zoidberg without a shell. Oh my god, work, bitch. Everyone had a right to speak their minds, including white supremacists. So why did he buy Twitter? It wasn't enough that he founded Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, and was born into wealth thanks to his family's profits from an African emerald mine. He wanted, nay, needed us all to know how cool and funny he was. Now it's backfiring beautifully, and with the exception of some weird nerds who think they're gonna be rich or something, we love to see it. But as hilarious and fun as it is to rip on the guy, the influence that he has over these weird nerds words is palpable. Obviously, the whole freedom of speech thing was a lie, but to the people who can now freely spread hate across the website, this is what was promised to them. They couldn't care less about freedom of speech because in their minds, Elon granted their wishes. They now have the right to be openly bigoted on Twitter, and since everybody seems to think Twitter is real life, they think they have that right all the time. And now this brings us to the cancel culture boogeyman, something that I agreed with momentarily until it too was bastardized into something idiotic. At first, I agreed with the idea that canceling someone for something offensive they said can be harmful because it implies that that person is incapable of growing and learning and discourages them from wanting to grow and learn. Of course, there's a difference between being canceled and being held accountable. Digging up crude jokes that someone wrote 10 years ago and spreading them across the internet to ruin their reputation is one thing, but firing someone due to them, I don't know, having sex with children is another thing. Apparently, there are people on both sides who think both situations are comparable. Now, cancel culture has become the reason I stopped doing stand-up comedy. Not because I was worried that my jokes were gonna get me canceled, but because everyone else was. The comedy scene used to be one that I loved and thrived in for a number of years, and now it's just become an insufferable pissing contest over what everyone's opinion on Joe fucking Rogan is. So many comics are caught up in the idea of being canceled when in reality they just need to write better material.
Look, if these are the confines that keep you from doing the craft God put you to, then it probably ain't for you.
I firmly believe that anything can be made funny, and I mean anything. But you have to be funny in the first place, which, let's face it, most people aren't. The only comedians who worry about it are the ones who think they're modern day philosophers while scolding the audience for not laughing at their rape jokes. If you want to talk about comedians who actually fight for the freedom of speech, do a quick Google search on George Carlin and Lenny Bruce, and they can tell you all about the fucking freedom of speech. Back to my original point, because talking about other comedians is boring. It's become clear that the fear of cancel culture only applies to specific selfish situations. The very concept of freedom of speech never even mattered, only when it was applicable to them saying whatever they wanted without facing any consequences. Yes, you have the right to say whatever you want, and the people who hear it also have the right to tell you you're an asshole. The same people who call for bans on grammar are the same ones whining that their freedom of speech is being taken away. Which, if it really was, why don't they ever shut the fuck up? Woke, groomer, and cancel culture are the holy trinity of terms put together in no particular order to scare half the population of the country so they never stop tuning in. And the worst part of all of this, the fact that these talking heads and pundits don't even believe half the shit they broadcast to millions and millions of people. Thankfully, we have a super recent example of why this may be the case. The Daily Wire versus Steven Crowder feud. The Daily Wire offered Steven Crowder $50 million. $50 million! Which he turned down over the concern that he might not make even more money. Because of his numerous YouTube demonetizations from his absolutely brilliant satire and groundbreaking conservative comedy that they just don't get, Crowder believed that that might lead to the fee being reduced due to a certain clause in his contract.
If blank is boycotted or dropped by more than 50% of the advertising partners, the company is not able to replace them within 90 days, the fee will be reduced by 25%. That's a sponsorship boycott. So that's saying, hey, liberals, boycotts work.
He not only claimed that conservative media was bowing to the demands of big tech, another boogeyman in the conservative zeitgeist, but that the deal was, and I quote, a slave contract. Apparently, a slave contract entails $50 million over the course of 4 years, only having to produce 90 minutes of content a week. Following this, Jeremy Boring released a statement that Crowder had actually missed misrepresented a lot of the details in his contract, including the fact that The Wire would take on most of the financial responsibility if, once again, advertisers decided that Steven Crowder was an unfunny, talentless, bigoted piece of shit. Boring could have stopped there to actually sound reasonable, but he just couldn't pass up another opportunity to paint the Daily Wire as a victim of big tech. Saying all this while knowing damn well that they're one of the most popular outlets on Facebook and was in Apple's top 10 podcasts chart of 2022. But wait, there's more! After this statement, Mr. The Irish Were Slaves Too drowned himself in a bottle of coke and aired a recording of his phone call with Boring, who could be heard saying almost exactly what Crowder had described as slave wages. This did not sit well with the president of the Daily Wire's Junior Achievement Program, so he called Crowder a shill for YouTube, thus mostly concluding Dramageddon Limited Conservative Edition. So aside from being super entertained by the civil war between these media pundits, what can we learn from this? It was so obvious all along. The amount of money that can be made by feigning outrage and using scare tactics on the ignorant is hilariously huge. Those who profit the most from ridiculing people who are offended by slave wages of $50 million. The Daily Wire sincerely believed that this was worth $50 million. And the bottom line here is that the spread of conservative propaganda online is almost entirely artificial. They're all getting paid to say things that they know aren't true because sounding that stupid pays a handsome salary.
The people you thought, the people I thought were fighting for you, a lot of it has been a big con.
And the billionaires who sponsor them know they can lure voters into supporting causes that are objectively against their own interests. Now, I know some of you are thinking, Francis, there are all sorts of shitty people in the world with all sorts of political opinions. Why you gotta go after the right so much? Well, don't get your tits in a tussle, because while I align myself with the left politically, I'd also like to add that the left can be fucking exhausting. Listen, fellow lefties, you're on the right side of history. Your hearts are in the right place. But similar to your conservative opponents, I implore you to just listen to yourselves sometimes. Instead of involuntary knee-jerk reactions when you hear something that you've been conditioned to believe is wrong because of the amount of internet discourse buzzing around your head all day, think about the bigger picture here. Trans people are being murdered every day, and half of you are arguing about what hashtags are okay to use, and the other half is bullying and harassing the first half. What exactly is being accomplished here other than both sides falling victim to the culture war, providing more fodder for the right, and making even more people feel unsafe? When you get distracted by trivial issues, you're no better than the reactionary conservatives that we've been roasting this whole time. There are two sides to the culture war, which you know damn well is artificial, and you don't have to be a part of it. So please, stop feeding into something that's been manufactured to drive a further divide between the left, the right, and the left again, so that those in power can continue to do whatever the fuck they want. Sorry, had to get that off my chest there. I've wanted to delete my Twitter for ages, but kept it for the purposes of making this video. It's super easy and fun to make fun of people who get offended over grammar or pressing issues that they made up themselves. But jokes aside, let's look at what's currently at stake here, all because of the woke boogeyman and those who perpetuate it. A record 240 anti-LGBTQ bills were introduced in 2022. 4 states have already banned gender-affirming care for trans youths. 24 hospitals have become targets for harassment and domestic terrorism for practicing gender-affirming care. After calling LGBTQ people groomers for the past 2 years, 28 Republicans voted against a bill that would protect victims of child sex abuse. 15 states are already advancing bills to ban drag shows, and 4 others plan to file bills in the near future. Some of those bills also include criminalizing appearing trans or gender non-conforming. The Texas Family Project has launched a website where civilians can report upcoming drag shows to warn others about the sexualization of children. A Texas school district has officially banned the use of preferred pronouns, discussions on sexual orientation, and transgender sports participation. 9 states have passed legislation that bans schools from teaching critical race theory. Mississippi has quite literally just reinstated a Jim Crow law. Because climate change awareness is now considered woke as well, Texas is now preventing state pension funds from boycotting fossil energy companies. Books are currently being banned in Florida. All books in school libraries must be vetted by a media specialist trained by the state, and those who fail to do so may be hit with a third-degree felony charge. Major cities in the US have reported an average of a 44% increase in hate crimes. The FBI has reported that hate crimes are the highest they've been in 12 years. Murders of trans people have doubled in just the past 4 years. The trans people murdered in the US alone since the start of 2023 are Chashay Henderson, Marie Jose Rivera, Zachi Imaniwidaho, Unique Banks, Casey Johnson, and Jasmine Star Mack. Unfortunately, I could go on, but this was supposed to be like a 15-minute video, and I already know it's way longer than that, so where does this leave us? It's difficult to say. In some ways, we're progressing faster than ever. In some ways, we're regressing back to the dark ages faster than ever. Crazy people aren't ever going to stop running for office or be elected. We can wait for the bigoted dinosaurs to die out all we want, but enough of them have already passed on that line of thinking to future generations. Those in power are actively working to make facts a matter of opinion, which is quite literally how fascism starts. Kanye West still won't take his meds, and unfortunately I can't just laser all these people and get it over with. It's not like I have a real solution for any of this, and I'm not gonna pretend that I do. More than likely, a year from now, maybe sooner, a new word will take the place of woke. Woke has already replaced PC, so who knows what new buzzword will be weaponized in the artificial culture war that we just love so much. You could say that I'm feeding into the culture war just by making this video. I'm no better or worse than anyone else. Well, except Nazis. I think I can safely say that I'm better than Nazis, right? Right. My only solution, even though it's short-term and superficial, is to end this video on a positive note. There are people out there who are the real heroes. Most people, in general, are not like this. It's easy to believe that they are, especially if you're chronically online like myself, but this is only because they're loud attention whores. Plenty of people from all generations and all corners of this country want to learn and grow more than you think. For all the anti-LGBTQ groups out there, they're the ones who work tirelessly against them. Super recently, a group of MMA fighters offered to help protect a drag show in West Virginia after getting threats from right-wing protesters. For as many human trash bags out there still allowed to walk the streets or hold positions of power, more and more of them are finally being held accountable for their actions. Oh, and somewhat unrelated but still amazing news, Andrew Tate has lung cancer. And look, views aside, my heart goes out to lung cancer. No one deserves Andrew Tate. And here's another way to end this video on a positive note by announcing the winning comment from the last video. Joshua Hitchcock 5888 says, Don Bluth has never been kid-friendly. Think about the Legend of Nim, I think you mean the Secret of Nim, or how you cried during the death scenes of The Land Before Time. Don enjoys harvesting kid tears. He puts them in his tea and uses them for lubricant. Okay, so I'm not the only person who does that, right? Right? You too can be featured in the next video. Leave a comment below, and I will pick my favorite one and give you a shout out next time. I appreciate you guys letting me vent about this. I promise I'll go back to talking about movies and TV and my other ways of ripping on Republicans. I just really needed an excuse to wear this costume again. If you would like to help the families of the trans women who have been murdered in the United States so far, please consider donating to their GoFundMes to help cover funeral expenses. Chashay Henderson's is F/Chashay B. Henderson. Zachi Imadawidahos is F/funeral expenses for Zachi. Casey Johnson's is F/funeral costs for Casey Johnson. And Jasmine Star Max is F/Jasmine Star with 2 R's. And please consider following my clown mug on Instagram or TikTok. My name for both is @QueenCokeFrancis. If you haven't done this already, I ask that you please run for the presidency. Pour all your money into campaigns, rile up a base that you know you can rely on, and crush in every debate. When you finally win, instead of making your inauguration speech, kindly unzip your pants and dick slap those like and subscribe buttons as hard as you can. And, of course, as always,